Good morning, everybody. As I always say, risk happens fast. Wow, we had a softer than expected CPI. And guess who liked that? Bitcoin did. Bitcoin's up $3,600 from the bottom yesterday. $3,600 straight up. And experts said the reading shows that core inflation has dropped. It's like 0.1 of a point or whatever. Anyway, that doesn't matter, but it's all about the stuff we'll get into in a minute as well. All the stuff that's going on in Bitcoin, in the market, touching on macro and how Bitcoin's on the ballot too. Crypto fear and greed index fell to 72, down from 74 yesterday. So let's get at it. And of course, well, disclaimer, pause it and read it if you like, but this is not financial advice, never will be. And shout out to Patreon too, and the team behind me from T&D Tesla. Patreon is awesome. Well, you know what's more awesome than Patreon? That's T&D Tesla. Dynamite. You are dynamite. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for being here in the chat, and thank you K8 as well, and the whole team behind me, and Sean Donnelly, and everybody else. Let's go. Bitcoin monthly returns. We're now positive again. A little negative yesterday, up 4.4% for the month of June. That was minus 1% yesterday. And again, it moves fast. Let's talk about some news. A lot of news today, bunch of charts, and then a little bit of ETF flows at the end. Let's talk about this first of all. We have a political election coming up. And again, I'm the most unpolitical animal. I just care about peace, freedom, safety, that type of stuff. And of course, if you're taxing me, that's fine. But if you're wasting my tax dollars, that's not fine. Okay, let's get into this, though. Trump has vowed to never allow a central bank digital currency if he's reelected, but he didn't clarify all the other stuff he's talking about. However, he did talk about, he met with a bunch of Bitcoin miners yesterday and also hinted at some stuff that mining Bitcoin in the States will make the country energy dominant, and that it may be our last line of defense against a central bank digital currency, which is very much in line with friend of the channel, Jason Lowery's theory that actually, the world would become very peaceful if it was Bitcoin based. Anyway, there's so much more to this. First of all, there's a lot of other stuff happening with the dollar, politics, currencies, geopolitics. And in the latest development, Saudi Arabia has decided not to renew its petrodollar deal with the US. And this move will allow Saudi to sell oil and other goods in various currencies like the renminbi, euro, yen, won, etc. Won, renminbi, I think they're the same thing. One is digital, one isn't. Maybe, I don't know. Rather than in US dollars. Also, it's a long-standing security agreement that the US had, and it expired on the 9th of June. And they said they weren't going to renew it again. And this move will largely benefit Bitcoin, as the US inflation rates could rise unprecedentedly, eroding the value of fiat currencies like the US dollar, which will prompt investors to explore alternative assets. Same thing, when they cut rates and people are enjoying their 5% on treasuries, when they're not getting that 5% anymore, they're going to seek alpha elsewhere, and that money will flow into risk assets. So that's coming soon. I tweeted this early this morning, and it was the most incredible V-shaped recovery we've ever seen. And this is in direct, immediate response to the soft CPI print. All the details about that are on Patreon from this morning. But let's get more into exactly what's going on with Bitcoin and the global election season. This is from Bitcoin Magazine Pro. And with the European Union's elections wrapped up and the British and American ones set to follow in the coming months, Bitcoiners worldwide are looking to the ballot box as increasing numbers of candidates make pledges to support Bitcoin. The cockroach that is Bitcoin has never been more alive. It's become a critical voting decision for people around the world. And it all happened so fast. This guy, again, and I know there's a lot of TDS and everything else, but literally, he's saying the right things right now. And, can you trust any politician? The answer is no. But he did meet with all the Bitcoin miners. The head of the Bitcoin Magazine CEO is in there too. And they were advising him on how Bitcoin is different and how it can actually benefit the US. So he is listening to the smartest people in the space. And he said he's committed to supporting mining in the White House, which is very, very good as well. Again, there's the way this is all panned out. You have one side that's against Bitcoin and pro ESG and against the energy Bitcoin mining uses. You got the other side that sees it as a line of defense. And it's also freedom too. So again, depending on what you actually want, if you're watching this channel, odds are you want your freedom and you will edge to the side of being very pro Bitcoin, I would assume. But we'll see how this all pans out. Also, this is a tweet from Trump, and he said Bitcoin mining may be our last line of defense against the central bank digital currency. Biden's hatred of Bitcoin only helps China, Russia, and the radical communist left. We want all the remaining Bitcoin to be made in the USA, and it will help us be energy dominant. I'm not sure Trump understands exactly how Bitcoin works. Mined in the USA, all of it, impossible. But anyway, some people need to continue advising him to learn more. He hasn't spent the 1,000 hours yet. And this is from Pierre, the Biden shouldn't have attacked. He gained nothing from it. That is, attacked Bitcoin and attacked Bitcoin mining. He gained nothing from it and pushed the industry to Trump. Biden should revamp his Bitcoin policy team over the next couple of months. So we've been tracking here a lot of the stuff around the SAB 121 and other factors. And the left are squarely against it. Okay? Simple fact of life. If they pivot now, I think it'll be too late. People see through that. But again, can you trust any politician? The answer is you decide. Not my thing to tell you. And Michael Saylor chimes in as well, and he said, we want all the remaining Bitcoin to be made in the USA. So Saylor is obviously pro-Bitcoin, which means pro whoever supports Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. So again, it's embrace or die in the classic sense, as another thing I also say quite often. Now, Dylan Leclerc also chimed in too. Patriots are in control. Trump backs Bitcoin as defense against foreign adversaries. And that is exactly the Jason Lowery thesis too. I'm wondering, did somebody share some of that as well? So that's the situation right now. It's actually good for Bitcoin. We all need Bitcoin. Okay, we need it to be defended, not attacked. But the good thing about Bitcoin is even if you attack it, it doesn't matter. You can't kill it. It's the cockroach. And 3 years ago, a little bit of history from Bitcoin historian. 3 years ago, Elon said Tesla would accept Bitcoin again when mining was 50% sustainable. Now it's 54%. 54% of miners use clean energy. So when are Bitcoin payments going to resume? And the thing is, it's a bit of a nothing burger anyway, because anybody who has Bitcoin and knows what it is, they won't part with it for a car or a piece of real estate. Some people may, but very few. So it's not really a big deal. And by the way, I'll be making a Tesla video later today. For those who care about Tesla, a lot of news. And tomorrow is D-Day. And I'm going to break it all down as well as some new price targets. So back to Bitcoin. Brazil's biggest bank with 60 million customers just opened up Bitcoin trading to all of their customers. That is extremely big news. And again, more adoption, which we like, which is great. And other crazy news too. The fourth union adds Bitcoin to their balance sheet. This Taunton firefighters became the fourth union in the US to add Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And by the way, these firefighters are in a place called Massachusetts. Same place, run by Senator Warren, who is very anti-Bitcoin. Firefighters don't care. They're brave, and they want independence, and they want to survive the future. They want a life raft. And these people who expose themselves to risk every day understand that better than anybody. So again, if you are anti-crypto, if you are anti-Bitcoin, it's no longer a good look, okay? Waging a war against what everybody wants is not a good look. Speaking of Bitcoin, hedge funds, and other funds here, this is a great list from CB. All of the big players that are in Bitcoin. Now, there's some positives and negatives. First of all, some of the funds are very big household names, but others are also hedge funds which speculate. And that explains a lot of the action we saw last week. A lot of funds like $2 billion in Millennium. They're obviously doing the carry trade that we covered on DCA and last week as well. And that means they're not exactly like a pension fund that would buy and hold Bitcoin. Many of these will speculate on it, but it doesn't matter. We saw just what happened over the last few hours, that the macro matters. Soft CPI print, Bitcoin goes up $3,600. Or the hedge funds caught short? Maybe a few of them are. And that probably helped exacerbate the price action too. Let's get into a couple of charts, ladies and gentlemen. And again, thank you all for coming. First one is the story today. Mike Alfred, who is very tight with Bitcoin miners like Iris Energy, he says the miners are saying that $66,000 Bitcoin is the absolute bottom for the rest of 2024. And the miners are the best predictive indicators in the entire Bitcoin ecosystem. Fade them at your own peril. Interesting. We came within $300 of $66,000 yesterday. Let's check out what $66,000 looks like on the layer in, layer out model that we have here. So interestingly, according to the model, layer 7 is 67,000. It's 1,000 higher than the Mike Alfred 66K hashtag miner floor, or whatever you want to call it. But it is interesting. Could that be the floor for the rest of the year? If that's the case, what's really interesting about this, those that have not packed their bags, if they hear this, and if this is true, yesterday was a crazy good buying opportunity. In fact, I bought 3 separate things yesterday because I like dips in a bull market. And that's what you got to take advantage of. Okay, so we'll see where this goes. 66K floor, I'd like to see that. But again, we got so close to it yesterday, but a crazy V-shaped recovery in hours. Let's look at another thing that we have a close eye on is the funding rate. Is getting very close to negative. In fact, it's negative on DYDX and Vertex so far, not on Binance, which is the main one. OKX is right there. It is almost a negative funding rate. And why do we care about that? Well, we spoke about it again on DCA show on Monday. And what negative funding rates mean is basically, simple terms, there's lots of people betting on price drops. Like the hedge funds that I mentioned here, they play that game, many of them. And the question is, what happens when funding rates are about to turn negative? It means the traders believe that Bitcoin's price will go down. Well, now, what this does is when we have a macro event like a soft CPI print, this can create the chance of a short squeeze. And a short squeeze occurs when Bitcoin's price unexpectedly goes up. In fact, in yesterday's video, I spoke about the odds of an FOMC rally after the FOMC meeting today. Bitcoin rallies 5 out of 6 times. Will it happen again today? Maybe this is a preemptive move. It's already kind of happened. So it could be another rally afterwards. So it would be crazy. It would take us above $70,000. But a short squeeze occurs when Bitcoin's price unexpectedly goes up. Traders who bet on the price dropping have to buy back Bitcoin to avoid losses. And this buying can push up the price even more, causing a cycle where more traders are forced to buy with further increasing price. We're seeing something similar to this happen with another asset right now called Tesla. That's why I'm doing that video in a few hours as well. We'll break it all down. Maybe a little gamma squeeze is in play too. Now, this is from Jelly and history repeating. It looks back at historic cycles. What I like about this chart is simplicity. Simplest charts are the best. The chart simply shows you the previous bull market top compared to the subsequent bull market top, like 2014 versus 2017. Then you have 2018 versus 2020. Then you have the current cycle, 2021 versus 2024. Now what happens is when these things map, there's a little bit of noise, the green little circle for a little while. And after that, there is breakout potential. I also said yesterday, 40 days left to the end of the 90-day post-halving period. We are 50 days in, 40 days left. But because everything's moving earlier and faster, it may not even be 40 days before we get into that next breakout leg. And that's what we're all very excited for. So again, putting it all together, if 66K is the absolute floor per Mike Alfred, and your bags are not packed, maybe you have less than 40 days to pack. Not financial advice, just history. We'll see if it repeats. And again, I remember everything that I say, so I'll bring it all back and we'll come back and see if I'm right or wrong. And another hardness news, the centralized exchanges drainage continues. You can see here the constant bleed. About 14,500 Bitcoin worth, I think, $1 billion left crypto exchanges in the last 48 hours. Okay, $1 billion left the exchanges in the last 48 hours. This thing is getting scarce, and a lot of people will never, ever take their stuff off exchanges because they don't trust their self-custody. So even though there may be stuff on exchanges, it doesn't mean it's for sale. But this trend is super interesting to always monitor. Also, Milky says their $85K target is still on the table. And after that, $110,000. Now, Milky also referred to the action yesterday. That was a programmed shakeout of leverage longs, the weekends yesterday, or whoever else. And you can see what happens. Took us down to 66.3, 66.2, and then boom, back to, let's check out the real-time price actually, 69,700. So we're $300 away from 70,000 again, and we'll cross through 70,000 for what, the 13th time, maybe 14th. Anyway, somewhere up there. And what's actually driving this too is excitement, because now I believe, and so do the markets, that, and I covered this yesterday too, September, there could be a very likely rate cut. If you add these percentages, 61.3 plus 9.6, call it 10, you got approximately 70% chance of rate cut in September. If something breaks, it could happen earlier. And that's what people like. Many people, all the so-called Wall Street psyop banks that try to scare everybody, kind of like the mainstream media, they tell you no chance of a rate cut in 2024. Well, that's not true. So it's coming. And when it comes, risk on, ladies and gentlemen. Like I covered as well at the beginning, when the yield on the treasuries falls, people will seek alpha elsewhere, just like our friends in that fire department in Massachusetts. Yeah, they're going to buy Bitcoin too. Anyway, another good news that we have to keep an eye on too is the M2 money supply. It's almost big time party time. This is the M2 money supply year-over-year change. We had a downdraft basically from 2022 all the way through March 2024. All the red money supply decreasing. Now it's increasing, and it has to increase at an accelerated pace because the economy is nowhere near as strong as people think. Watch this space carefully. Again, the more M2, more M1, the more liquidity, the more the tide goes up and it floats our boats. Also, the more debasement too. So again, it's a double-edged sword, but again, as long as you're in hard assets, you're going to be just fine. And this is other crazy news too. Staggering oil surplus from the Financial Times. The world faces a staggering surplus of oil, equating to millions of barrels per day, forecasted to the end of the decade. This chart goes out to 2030. But either the world will be completely electrified or the global economy is going to shrink. I don't know which one it's going to be. But there is that oversupply, which also bodes well for inflation. And the massive cushion of extra oil could upend efforts of OPEC to manage the market and usher in a new era of power, lower prices. And again, we're not sure where this will go, but either way, electrification is coming. There's no doubt about that. We have a super reactor in the sky. You just need to harness the energy and store it. That's why we like a certain name. And oil demand will continue to fall. But the surplus is interesting for oil price. If it keeps the lid on oil price, that's actually very good for inflation, which will mean rate cuts could happen faster or sooner. Anyway, just some interesting observation. Bitcoin Only playlist will be here after it's processed. Let's talk about the black hole. Yesterday was a nasty day. Nasty. Did Bitcoin care? No. That's what we like to see. Okay. So we had over $200 million. I forgot to update the chart. That should be day 105. That's old, but this is not. This is updated. A whole bunch of funds dumped a lot, including Grayscale. Grayscale dumped over $120 million straight back. That's more than they've taken in since they started having a few positive days over the last month or two. All given back. And that is interesting. BlackRock was flat. Fidelity like minus 6 million, if I recall. And a couple of other names, I think BITB dropped about 30 million. Overall, $200 million negative day reflected here. This is the worst dump we've had for the ETFs since day 77. That was on the 1st of May. And again, it doesn't matter. Bitcoin went up $3,000. That is a very positive sign. So I don't know if retail are coming in or who's buying or the shorts are covering. It's fantasy. We'll find out more tomorrow. And we had, despite the dumpage, 2,977 Bitcoin were added back to the system from these 9 ETFs. And that is quite a bit. But remember, we had a record 19 days of positive inflows. Of course, nothing goes up forever. That's why they're called records. Records are there because they're special. And no record lasts forever. So remember that. And Grayscale, 4 big dumps in a row. This thing just is not, the bleeding just doesn't stop. It's kind of crazy. But maybe the people that are in GBTC are the short-term speculators. That's why I was surprised. Why would people buy GBTC at 1.5% management fee when they could have 20 basis points somewhere else? The answer is they're speculators. 1.5% doesn't matter if you're only in for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. That's probably why they were buying GBTC, and that's why they're dumping it. My theory could be wrong, but anyway, just a guy on the internet. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the show. For those Tesla fans out here, I'll be back in a couple of hours updating you all on Tesla and D-Day, the importance of D-Day, the probabilities of the comp package being approved, as well as some super price targets and what they are missing. Very interesting. I'm excited for that one myself. Thank you all. Thank you to the mods in the chat. See you all later.